Well, we're probably prepared for what's gonna happen next, so let's see what the next dungeon has in store for us now. Well, it's certainly ornate in the dragon statue, almost like they designed the thing to get some bits of maintenance from various gnomes or other small people or something to that effect. I'm not too sure if the gnome village or any other villages with very small peoples knows that the statue has an interior like this, though. I'm also not too sure we're ever gonna see the monsters we're running into in this dungeon anywhere else. What even is a Lilliputian supposed to be anyway? It looks like some kind of horned hamster. Not exactly the sort of thing that makes you want to run and hide, even when you're about the size of an ant. Considering how fancy looking the floor is, it's a bit interesting to see some holes in it. Not much point in gaining a sword when we're going through a gimmick that means that melee combat is completely infeasible. Sure, it'll probably be nice once we're done with this dungeon, but still, I'm used to being able to equip whatever we gather in a dungeon while we're still in it. Of course, I'm also used to games where you can't just shift around what equipment a character is capable of equipping on a whim. Definitely hard to fully adjust to. It's probably not that big of a thing, but why is it when we're going down they look like random holes in the floor, but when we're supposed to go up they look like pristine staircases? I know it doesn't actually mean anything in a game this old, but still, there are a few things in the visuals around here that doesn't quite feel like it adds up. And I'm sure they could have done something a little better with what they had. Well, that mouse must be someone important. I might be a bit paranoid to do a quick save before facing a mouse of all things, but hey, we've had a rough time here at the start of the game. I think I'm justified being a little paranoid around here. Well, this boss doesn't really have a distinctive name. It's literally just labeled as a giant rat. That's a bit odd. Our first boss fight was against a massive turtle thing. Our second against some mystical genie that hates the world. And now we're fighting a rat of slightly unusual size. We had to shrink for him to seem big. Not exactly the most coherent of enemy progressions, is it? Though I suppose this random rat does have the ability to throw some moderately powerful spells at us. That's gotta be a bit disconcerting. There are probably more efficient ways to take this rat down. Still, we're doing a good amount of damage here, and he can only attack one of us at a time. That's gotta be worth something. Hell, I'm pretty sure things would start making me feel worried if the rat ever tried to hit the same person 2 turns in a row. As is, I'm feeling pretty relaxed here. Definitely feels like I can get away with doing more damage, at least for a single turn, so yeah, let's throw at least 1 arrow in. Not that we can throw 2. Yeah, that's probably a more efficient use of our resources for this turn. And that does it. Another boss taken down. I wouldn't say that's the sort of thing that would be put into Legends, but still, progress is progress. And to be fair, that rat could take a beating. Well, here's hoping we have enough magic left in us to march all the way back to the entrance of the dungeon. Once we're out, then we can transform back into non-magical classes and be able to rely on physical attacks again. Again, it's always a bit funny that in magical worlds, I tend to prefer being someone who uses little to no magic. I wonder why that is. It's certainly not like things are going to be all that visceral in a turn-based game, at least on a fight-by-fight basis. I guess it's just that I don't like how magic can get exhausted and you have to keep track of that in every fight. Which might be part of the reason why I've never really liked the Dark Souls games and their stamina bars. It probably doesn't mean much for us to grab the 2 chests in here. Still, we're in the neighborhood. I'm sure I've got enough black magic charges left before we leave. But I suppose that's tough to say for sure when we don't know just how many fights we're gonna get into on our way out of here. Okay, 2 shell-related items, but it doesn't really feel like a full set, though it might have looked a little ridiculous to see something like shell boots and shell gloves. Considering we keep getting job level-ups, I can't help feeling that the post-fight screen should show how far we are from leveling up in a given job, not just our regular level-ups. They certainly have room to do so in the post-fight screen. Should I bother asking why the statue has 2 different colored eyes? Or that the dragon that isn't actually here is talking through a statue meant to represent it? I don't suppose you can be more specific what kind of obstacles this particular item is meant to be used for. I certainly doubt we're gonna use it to just burst through any random wall. Okay, as much as I want to change classes, it's probably a better idea to wait until we get back to normal sized. If nothing else, we've certainly gotten used to fighting with 3 magic users at this point. I mean, sure, all 4 of our characters used magic, but Definitely running low on magic, but we've still got plenty to make it back to the pirate cave here, or where they supposed to be Vikings. Now, that probably doesn't matter all that much, but it's still gonna itch at me. Just like it's always gonna aggravate me that all our main characters, and whoever happens to be following us at the same time, all end up in the exact same bed. And we're back to full-sized. Here's hoping we won't end up shrinking again anytime soon. Though I've got the distinct feeling we might have to do the whole shrinking thing again later on since it's such a unique gimmick. Okay, just gonna double check all of our equipment before we move on. You don't strictly need to do that in the Pixel Remaster. It will automatically equip what you kind of need. It considers the best gear when you change classes. Still, there's no harm in double checking just in case your idea and the computer's idea is different. Though I do find it funny that the game itself prioritizes giving our warrior 2 swords instead of giving him a sword and shield. That's certainly a damning indictment on shields in this game, that's for sure. Kinda makes me wonder what the point was in including that class of item in the game, if even the rudimentary algorithm that decides what's a better item can decide shields aren't worth equipping here. Archery at least felt like a nice concept that needed a bit of work when this game was first released. We saw part of that annoyance in my playthrough of the PSP Final Fantasy IV, where you had to either buy arrows or find them in dungeons. That was barely acceptable to me when it was Rosa's main method of offense. One character, and we had several moments where that character left our party without any warning. But in a game where black mages can use bow and arrows, and you have a class of dedicated archers, and you could potentially have a team of nothing but guys with bows, that is damn rough. Seriously, it might not be a great idea, but it's possible. And part of the thing with some gamers is they will do stupid crap just because they can. Not that I have any idea why you would choose to do that, but hey, pretty much anything is possible. It's just that pretty much every boss fight in this game is tailored for some very specific classes to contend with. And the fact that we have the freedom to choose classes means that the bosses being that bloody tailored makes the game just a bit more annoying for me to go through. Right, so when you're trying to give someone a spell, the game won't let you see what spells they already have when you're trying to teach them one, because apparently that would have been too convenient. Really, that feels like something the Pixel Remaster could have dealt with. I know, it's a minor thing, but still. While I'm a bit annoyed that so many of the people here are saying the same thing, at least they're acknowledging that we did something earlier in the game. Well, that guy certainly didn't change his dialogue. Oh, I'm sure you could have handled it if any of you knew how to use magic. Hell, there's a magic merchant in your cave. One of those spells on sale is Mini, the very spell you'd need to enter that rather short dungeon. Well, we were small enough to shake hands with a bee, though I really hope we didn't break our knees to the point that they bent quite as many times as a bee's. As a side note, I'm pretty surprised we didn't do anything special with the cannon in the cave. I was kind of expecting that to be useful before we had to move on from here, but yeah, well, guess that's what I get for making assumptions around here with all the other things that have gone outside of what I was planning on. This game just keeps finding ways to make me stumble and go, what the hell? For a moment there, I was worried I might have had people in the wrong row, but apparently I was just being paranoid. Really have no clue if they were going for scarier cartoony with the monster designs around here. Okay. There's no way that moving furball in the middle of the desert isn't gonna be important later on. Huh. Not the usual kind of hello we get when we enter a village. Okay, credit where it's due. They managed to make the insides of these buildings look more run down than the outside. I was kind of worried they'd all look the same as all the other villages. Is there anything in particular about our crew that makes you think we're the marauding, child-slaughtering kind? Right. Of course they went to the desert. Because the desert had some pretty damn eye-catching thing just on the world map. Oh well, doesn't look like there's anyone else to talk to in here, and certainly nothing to grab. On second thought, they're pretty wise to keep their valuables away from any strangers. It's kind of a multi-genre trope that video game protagonists will grab whatever they can. Sorry, old man, we're gonna take your cider that you thought you had hidden in the random patch of grass, and I doubt we're gonna bother drinking it, we're just gonna sell it. What? Does that mean we're gonna have to enter their gulch at some point? Maybe soak the gulch in their blood? What the hell? Well, whatever it means, we're gonna go to it and meet those people eventually. I kinda wish I could feel some kind of anticipation for what's gonna come next, but that would require the storytelling to actually have a plot. Instead, it feels like we've got a sequence of events that have some loose connection to one another. Understandable in a game this old, but still, something that can kind of itch at me considering I generally go for games for their story. Why is it that some people in the village immediately think we're hostile and others just treat us like any other village would? I honestly would have preferred if everyone in this village was cautious or afraid of us, though. It would have helped give the place more personality, though. Considering the player characters are all blank slates, the town seriously already has more personality than anybody we've got. So, the town is on the verge of collapsing, but the wife of the mayor casually told us about the supplies they have hidden behind the fireplace. I'm sorry, but even in a story this basic, that feels like just bad writing. Well, if nothing else, this village is certainly being generous to Brett. Maybe I can get away with dealing with the next boss with nothing special in terms of tactics and classes, though maybe that's just wishful thinking. Anyway, that seems to be everything in this town. As far as I can tell, they don't have any stores. Understandable if the place is economically drained to the breaking point. Still, I think I'm gonna hit one of the earlier towns just for some supplies before we properly move on. Besides, leveling up might help with whatever we're gonna run into later. Though leveling up doesn't quite feel as straightforward as it is in Final Fantasy 1 or 4. It's not quite as weird as Final Fantasy 2 or 8, so yeah, it's still acceptable, but Well, since we're going into town, we may as well have Desh go see the girl who's crying to see him. Doubt it'll mean anything, but hey, can you blame me for hoping for some semi-decent character interactions around here? Oh, you've gotta be kidding me. I mean, sure, that prompted a chuckle from me, but come on! Well, at least he was honest with the girl who's pining for him. If he claimed he was someone else to her, then it would stop being amusing. Probably a waste of money to get another bow, but hey, may as well since we might need more than one black mage. We'll see as we keep pushing forward. At the very least, I wasn't that much of a fan how Midori handled himself in the dragon statue. Sure, we had enough magical charges to get in, do a boss fight and get out, but that was a close thing. As a side note, usually the elemental charge staves are black mage weapons in the Final Fantasy franchise. Why do white and red mages get them in this game, but the black mages don't? I'm not arguing against arbitrary choices. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the arbitrary choices around here. Well, doesn't look like there's all that much left here that feels worth grabbing, at least not at the moment. So this is probably going to be as good a time as any to wind things down and end the clip. We're certainly making progress, even if it's not all that measurable, since we have no clue how many other things we need to do as we keep pushing forward, and it's not like we can judge based on the flow of the story. The story isn't complicated enough to have much of a flow.